if STRC starts slowing down, now strategy has this option to increase the dividend rate. And now it begs the question whether Saylor wants to do this, right?
Yeah, they would announce it here in a few days, right? On the last day of the month is when they announce any increases or decreases in the interest rate. So we'll find out very soon. And I tend to agree if we don't get back to 100 this week, they will increase by 25 basis points here.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to One Chair. None of what you will hear is financial advice, and this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So we'll start today's show as usual with the MSTR buys of the week. It's a lower buy than we got used to here over the last few weeks. Strategy bought 264 million worth of Bitcoin. They financed it with 7 million of STRC and 257 million of common stock. It was to be expected that the STRC would be lower for last week because it depegged from 100. It only briefly traded at 100. That's probably when they were able to raise those 7 million. But otherwise, all of last week, it was trading below 100. And it still is below 100 as we're taping here on Monday, the 26th. So no additional buys from STRC ATM expected currently. And then on the MSTR common stock, a lot lower quantities of buys than we were accustomed to here over the last few weeks. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it wasn't unexpected considering how exactly STRC and MSTR traded last week. All of that obviously due to the price of Bitcoin, the underlying just not performing. And I think sentiment is again down in the gutter just in general due to geopolitics, tariff talks, and so on. So nothing unexpected. Actually, still quite bullish considering they still managed to get over 2,000 Bitcoin in a week where exactly sentiment is not great. So I think they're just keeping the engine going. Yeah, just think it just shows how committed they are to keep buying the Bitcoin week over week.
Yeah, Bitcoin was down significantly last week, and lots of fear, as you said, in the market. And still impressive to be able to issue 250 million worth of stock. And MSTR itself was not down that significantly last week. It's still trading above book value. It's at 1.1 MNAV currently, so still accretive for strategy to issue shares here.
I think what needs to be discussed is STRC, right? Because now it got depegged, and obviously, as we talked in the prior episodes about the new flywheel, if STRC starts slowing down, now strategy has this option to increase the dividend rate. And now it begs the question whether Saylor wants to do this, right? I would tend to say that if it keeps trading at this range, they might do it, because at the prices of Bitcoin that we're seeing, if I was Saylor, I wouldn't mind paying a 25 pips more on STRC to start throttling this engine again and start accumulating like he was a couple of weeks back. So I don't know what you think about the increase of dividend rate for STRC coming up in case it stays at the price it is right now.
Yeah, they would announce it here in a few days, right? On the last day of the month is when they announce any increases or decreases in the interest rate. So we'll find out very soon. And I tend to agree if we don't get back to 100 this week, they will increase by 25 basis points here. I think for me the speculation or the interesting question is, might they raise it by more than 25 bips? Do they go aggressively and increase by 0.5 percentage point to really create additional demand on STRC so that they can print millions a week like they did in the last few weeks? I don't know.
That's a good question, because as mentioned, if you're Saylor, maybe you pay even the 50 bips to get this flywheel really turning. Currently the price of STRC is sitting at 99.60 US dollars. So we're not far from par. And I expect that 25 bips increase should be sufficient to get it back to par. If you do the 50 bips increase, then you're starting to issue a lot more. And that could make sense. I mean, why not? Knowing Saylor and how aggressive he tends to be, it could be. So that's a good question to ask.
Yeah, if he really wants to take advantage of those Bitcoin prices, I think it's a possibility, but I don't think they will do it, and I don't know if it sets a good precedent, because it could also bring the market to always expect additional yield at the end of every month, and if at some point they stop, then
it's true. You don't want to raise expectations to the market, saying that you're going to be aggressively raising those dividends when you don't really need them. So I expect even that strategy might be on the lookout for the next few days. And if it even starts climbing up the price, they might not even raise the 25 pips, because the price of STRC is already healing by itself without having to raise the dividend rates. The next few days are going to be very interesting to be on the watch out for this. And on top of that, next week on the 5th of February, we have the strategies quarterly earnings. So I think nothing too unexpected there. We already know they're going to have a substantial loss, and that S&P 500 inclusion is out of the question. So nothing too much to be expected, but still interesting to follow what strategy might come up with during the earnings call.
Yeah, and because of this earnings call, what we can expect is also a blackout period, right, in common stock issuance. So maybe, probably, this weekly buy was the last one here for a couple of weeks. Probably they won't raise anything this week and next week going into earnings. But this means that the buying pressure from strategy is for the short term is gone. So let's see how price is able to hold up here over the next couple of weeks without strategy as a buyer of last resort here.
All right, so that's all we had on strategy for this week. Moving to Strive. Strive announced that they would be issuing SETA shares to buy back the convertible bonds that they inherited from the Saylor merger. And it looks like they'll be selling 1,300,000 shares of SETA, more or less, at the price of $90 per share, raising 118 million, more or less, dollars. Yeah, looks like they're moving aggressively. So what are your thoughts on this one, Quentin?
But first, that again, they're moving super fast, right? The merger was just concluded, and now they already raise additional funds to clear the convertible debt that they inherited from Saylor. So super fast execution again, and I think it shows how important those instruments are for a treasury company. It gives them a lot of option, right, to raise funds, and without the preferred equity, it would be a lot more painful to get rid of the debt that they have on the balance sheet. And issuing common stock would probably be perceived as a negative for the stock, and it's great that they can just tap this other instrument on the back of Stretch's success, right? We saw SETA run also over the last few weeks, and they're taking advantage of that and issuing at the right time, because SETA has been trading now in a range between 95 and 100 for a while. So it is quite it's quite an attractive offer to offer it at $90, with the market seeing that it holds well above.
I'm a bit conflicted actually about the move, because as you said, it's nice that they move aggressively and that they are able to retire this loan fairly quickly from Saylor. However, it's still on the back of the shareholders of Strive, because as you just mentioned, the SETA is trading between 99 and 100. So it's still selling those SETA at a discount. And my initial thought is that they're going to sell SETA through the ATM offering, and instead of buying Bitcoin, they would retire the loan. Obviously, it would not be as aggressive or as quick as they're moving now. That could be the more reasonable approach, considering that there you don't have this discount on the SETA shares as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and it's I don't know why they decided to move that fast on retiring this loan. They could have just hit the ATM over the next 6 months, let's say, and pay it back slowly. But I don't know. Question for the Strive team here.
I guess we'll figure this out soon enough. Yeah, so let's maybe have a couple of words on some final thoughts.
I think again now over the past few weeks, the market turning negative, and the sentiment around Bitcoin and Bitcoin treasuries not great. But I think what's nice to see, if you zoom back just a little bit over since the beginning of the year, right? Bitcoin is almost flat, down a bit. But still, with the volatility that we had with the run up to 97K and now down again, the strategy was still able to issue a lot of shares and buy a lot of Bitcoin, right? So overall, Bitcoin is flat, but they added 50,000 Bitcoin since the beginning of the year, so something in that range, right? So yeah, it's showing that Bitcoin doesn't necessarily need to have a good month for strategy to accumulate like crazy. So I think overall, still bullish. Now I don't know what the market uncertainties will resolve in. Gold and silver is still going crazy, parabolic right now. So let's see if there's a rotation into Bitcoin at some point.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have a bit of short-term pain again on the macro outlook with all these issues, again, geopolitical and so on. So I don't expect to have a major run-up in the next couple of days or weeks. But I think, as you mentioned, the setup is still very bullish longer term. I still think 2026 is probably going to be a good year overall. And what's really interesting, and this is also for our discussions with the different people working in the Bitcoin treasury space, is that they're all still building, and they're laser-eyed, focused on the goal, which is to acquire more Bitcoin for their companies. So I see that the treasuries space might feel a bit sleepy right now. I'm pretty sure they're going to come in force, and when they do, that's when we're going to see probably some interesting price action for Bitcoin and those Bitcoin treasuries. So still bullish overall, and looking forward to see what happens next week with strategy, mainly obviously as the leader. All right, that's all we had for you today. So thanks for listening, and see you on the next one.
How many chairs are you sitting on right now?